Viewers, it's absurd but true. Last week, a section of the opposition in India and its ideological cohorts on the left tried to whitewash the Taliban's record of tyranny. Now, when the effort collapsed, viewers, they're attempting to publicly bully Indians like you and I, who refuse to accord the medieval butchers any legitimacy. Yes, viewers, if you don't come out and say that Taliban are freedom fighters, if you don't come out and say that Taliban are the true inheritors of Afghanistan, if you don't come out and say that Taliban helped wipe out American neo-imperialism in this part of the world, you are an Islamophobe. Several left-Luthians, analysts, so-called thinkers, and politicians have now begun to suggest that Taliban's criticism in India stems from a deep-seated Islamophobia. So if you're moved by the tears of a 9-year-old who is howling because she is being sold into sexual slavery and you condemn it, you're an Islamophobe. Viewers, not only does this mock the predicament of thousands and thousands of Afghans who are desperate to leave Afghanistan because they fear a return to a medieval Islamist dogma that is at once regressive and repressive, but it is equally a slap in the face of thousands of Afghan women who are in mortal danger of being whipped, raped, murdered, or sold into sexual slavery for asserting their rights as equal citizens. This claim by the left-Luthians that anyone who criticized the Taliban is an Islamophobe spits in the face of the terrified Sikhs and Hindu Afghans who are tortured by the Taliban for not being true believers. Many of them, viewers, have landed here in India, and you heard them. But God forbid, viewers, if you sympathize with them, because if you do, you're an Islamophobe. This attempt to brand Taliban's critics Islamophobes is a crude assault on anyone who stands up for democracy, diversity, and decency in Afghanistan and around the world. Worse, criticizing anyone who is against the Taliban for being Islamophobic is to suggest that the Taliban represents all that is good in Islam. Surely that can't be the left-Luthians' position. Surely they need to tell us why they make comments like the ones I'm going to read to you. Here are the comments of the left-Luthian set, viewers. The first attack on people like you and me. They believe that the Taliban's rise has revived Islamophobia industry. Indian right wing is leading the charge. Viewers, if you criticize the Taliban, you are an RSS functionary. That is what is being said. You are part of the great saffron family. You are, viewers, heretics. There's another attack. Listen to this. Attempt to portray every Indian Muslim as part of a global terror brotherhood. So if you criticize the Taliban, you are condemning all Muslims to the terror brotherhood. This is what these people feel. I don't know, viewers, what's got into them. Indian Muslims are being put in the dock for actions of Taliban in Afghanistan. What makes them think this? Condemning the Taliban in Afghanistan is new patriotism test for Indian Muslims. Who's setting it? I'm not setting it. No one else is setting it. Muslims in India, a large number of them are coming out and condemning the Taliban. Are they doing it because they want to be patriots? No, they just want to be good, civilized people. Hindutva militancy using Taliban takeover to spread Islamophobia in the country. I didn't know that Biden was a Hindutva leader. I didn't know that Trump was the sarpanch of all Hindutva leaders. Are they off their rocker, viewers? Or are they today so sold down the pipeline of appeasement that they want to insulate the Taliban? This reminds me of what happened before independence, at the height of the Khilafat movement. Viewers, secularists, honest secularists became apologists for the caliphate and the dreams of establishing one. What is going on? Now let me also ask some of these great individuals who have come up with this thesis what they make of Sayyid Zainul Abidin, Ajmer Dargah head. He says Taliban's reign of terror opposed to Islamic principles. Has he also just escaped from the latest Shakha in the morning? I don't think so, viewers. There's Mehdi Majid, All India Shia Personal Law Board member. Terror unleashed by Taliban in Afghanistan is condemnable. Did he have a one-on-one session with Mr. Amit Shah this morning? I don't think so. Indian Muslims for secular democracy say we must reject the Islamist emirate of Afghanistan. Did they just drink some Ganga Jal? No, viewers, they didn't. Ayatollah Asadullah, noted Iran cleric. Taliban remains a radical, violent and terrorist group. Has he suddenly started drinking bourbon with Biden in the White House? No, viewers, he's not. He's not. He is being a decent human being. Who can legitimize this rubbish from the Stone Age? You can't, viewers. And don't allow these people to bully you into standing up for what is right. I want to open this up tonight. I want to first begin with Dr. Anand Ranganathan, Abhijit Iyer Mitra, before I bring in some of the more politically inclined. Dr. Ranganathan, what is going on? The left Lutyens coming out here and saying that a fairly decent guy like you is some sort of a Hindutva, madcap.
No, good evening, Rahul. Look, the problem, Rahul, is that the Taliban are intent on implementing the holy verses and commandments that these moderates were happily preaching all along. As simple as that. That is the problem. Please understand the psychology at play here, Rahul. I do. And I even commiserate. What the Taliban are doing is embarrassing the moderates and then useful idiot chumps the leftists. Hence this dire need to bring in false equivalences with Hinduism, Hindutva, or label the Taliban as radical. But there is nothing radical in it, because there is nothing called radicalization or radical Islam. If a Muslim reads, imbibes, memorizes, practices, preaches, extols a book that explicitly defines who is a believer or a non-believer, 33, 36, 31, 32, 82, 49, 50, and has more than half of its verses asking for the destruction and annihilation of non-believers, polytheists, Jews, Christians, saying they are the worst of creatures, 98.6, never to be married with 221. They should be condemned to eternal loathing in hell, 456. That no other deity has the right to be worshipped except Allah, 4062. Does he become a radical Muslim? Kaise bhai? Are 1.8 billion Muslims radical? Because all of them, by the very definition of being Muslim, have to believe that these commandments by Allah are true and inviolable. That is why I say, Rahul, Islamophobia is the rational fear amongst Muslims to discuss Islam in its entirety, which is the axiom, snare the fundamentalists but spare the fundamentals. It is the so-called moderate Muslims who are Islamophobic. That is, they fear Islam. They fear to bring out the commandments of the holy book in their entirety on Jews, Christians, polytheists, Hindus, homosexuality, apostasy, heresy, dress code, wife beating, blasphemy. ये तालिबान में करिए अमेंडमेंट्स क्या? नहीं, ये होली बुक में है. And that is what they fear. They fear being called illiberal and hypocrites. So they end up condemning and branding as radicals the Muslims who are faithfully following the fundamentals. वो सोच रहे होंगे अरे यार एक किताब है, हम फॉलो कर रहे हैं, हमें गालियां पड़ रही हैं. Rahul, please 30 seconds. Now, normally, if you love a book, extol it, recommend it, and someone else reads it and quotes from it, you'll be pleased no end, right? So why is it that when I quote all these verses from a book that the Muslims love, extol, and recommend, why is it that I turn into a bigot and Islamophobe? All I'm doing is quoting the words of Allah and popularizing them. Why are the Muslims embarrassed by these verses and words? Tell me. Why do they hate me for it? They should be delighted that I'm quoting what they have read and imbibed in childhood, that policies are the worst of features and kafirs will roast in hell. I don't get it. Or maybe I do. You don't want these verses to be known. You want the Ganga Jamni facade to continue, to keep resting your head on Al-Taqiyya and singing lullabies to non-believers. Kuch samjhe daya?
Okay. Let me bring in Abhijit Iyer Mitra. Abhijit Iyer Mitra, you know, Dr. Ranganathan has his point of view. What is yours on this?
Look, no religion follows its book 100%. There's always a difference between what's written and what's practiced. Unfortunately, the problem is that everything that is practiced also has validation in the book, right? So to say that somehow what is being done is un-Islamic is a bit rich. Because, you know, they can quote as many number of verses like Anand just did to show that what they're doing is perfectly Islam, number one. Number two, I find this notion that these people have of Islamophobia particularly funny. Given that they call all Hindus terrorists, if there is one cattle lynching incident somewhere, if some bomb happened somewhere which didn't even kill anybody, all Hindus are terrorists. Anybody wearing saffron, anybody saying Jai Shri Ram wants to kill people. Okay, but surprisingly, when a whole country goes berserk, decides to impose all kinds of bizarro laws, killing off homosexuals, throwing homosexuals off the roof, chopping off women's hands, killing women for adultery, etc., 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 it should not be extrapolated onto the entirety of it. Now, either one law applies to all, or it does not. Now, notice the same people saying Islamophobia. Now, personally, I believe it should. The actions of individuals should be contained to individuals. It should not be ascribed to the entire. The problem with the individuals raising these fears of Islamophobia are the ones who scream Hindu terror every single day. Jai Shri Ram is a symbol of terrorism, etc., etc. So it is the hypocrisy of this all that really gets you. Now, we should also remember that these people, they are celebrated with Major League journalism, the gold standard of Indian journalism, the conscience keeper of the Indian nation. What not rubbish. These are the sort of fear-setting journalists who give stamps of approval for what is good journalism, what is bad journalism. Don't stick to any standard themselves. Peddle an agenda in the name of journalism. And mind you, they are celebrated internationally. Why? Because it turns out that the whole world has gone mad. I think you can just as well say that journalism as a profession has gone mad if this is the kind of journalist that you're.
Well, let me open this up. This is fascinating. 2 insights. Let me open this up. Mr. Vivek Srivastava, since you belong to the left Latvian set, I want to ask you, is the left Latvian set today legitimizing Taliban as a true symbol of Islam? Maybe you see something that we don't.
No, I'll tell you what. On your channel right now, Dr. Anand Ranganathan again talked like an Islamophobist. He did not criticize the Taliban. He did not talk of the Taliban. He did not analyze the Taliban. He started selectively, analyzing the Quran without having the full knowledge of it, trying to, give us numbers of verses here and there, and hence proving that all the Muslims are This is what he was trying to do. He's not an
Now, why do you? Did I take your name?
Let him finish.
I
Let him finish.
must come in here.
Let him finish one
Let me
second.
speak.
Okay.
आधा ज्ञान अधूरा ज्ञान खतरनाक होता है आनंद जी तो पहले पूरा ज्ञान लेकर के आइए whether it is Hinduism or it is Islam, Christianity, Marxism, anyism. First, you should have the full knowledge of any subject before you speak.
आप रंगनाथन साहब को अटैक कर रहे हैं कि आप पॉइंट बना रहे हैं? Give your point. What is your point? Vivek Srivastava, what is your point? I'm asking you, are you...
Taliban is an
No, if we criticize, one second, Mr. Srivastava, let me rephrase the question so you can answer it. Just listen to me. If you criticize the Taliban, why should you be an Islamophobe? Can you explain this to me? What is the connection?
Yes. Because you praise the Taliban and try to link up the Taliban with the Quran, then you denounce the Quran, you denounce Islam, you denounce Muslims as all of them being terrorists.
Students.
Then you that there are Indian links.
What are they students of?
Are coming, so you try to threaten the Hindus over there and polarize the vote so that Mr. Yogi can win.
Okay, so if the BJP, okay, one second, if a political party that is part of government today, and that particular political party's NDA government goes ahead and takes a, one second, and takes a stand saying that, look, we cannot legitimize the Taliban right now till we see what it stands for, what it preaches. Are you suggesting that that is Islamophobic?
Let me tell you very clearly, sir, the Indian government was in touch with the Taliban, non-state actors were already in touch, and the deal in Doha 2020.
Okay, so because they were in touch with the Taliban, no other Indian citizen can condemn the Taliban and call them out to be barbarians because that would be Islamophobic. Now that is another weird logic, but nonetheless, since we are all betrothed in your eyes to bhakti of the government, then sir, I can't help you there. Maybe you have confused communism with democracy, but the fact of the matter is, sir, that a large number of private citizens in this country don't want to legitimize the Taliban, and we should be free to criticize them without being told that we are Islamophobic. How does that work?
Why is Dr. Anand Ranganathan linking the Taliban to the Quran? And why is it denouncing Quran?
Okay, let me bring in Dr. Ranganathan. Dr. Ranganathan, yes. Why don't you respond? Because they are teachers, they are teachers of their faith. They call themselves the Taliban. They are not the Taliban of, you know, I don't know, fashion design.
Rahul, I hope you have muted my good comrade Vivek, because it has almost become my holy duty to manage him. You know, I have known of him for years, and I still cannot make out if he's the loincloth or the slam. Every day he comes, and every day he gets trashed. Now, just very quickly, 2 points. Here he is standing up for Muslim rights, so I want to ask him. He has previously, being a communist, fought for the rights, stood with solidarity with Palestinians and Syrians, hasn't he? I want him to condemn China for interning 1.5 million Uyghur Muslims in concentration camps and feeding them pork. Condemn him. Number 2.
There's nothing.
Let me quote. Now, one second. Rahul.
Nothing wrong with that, he says.
Nothing wrong with that. He says nothing wrong with that. Okay. Now, Rahul, please let me finish. Yeah, Vivek, please don't interrupt. Rahul, please don't interrupt. Please, sorry, Vivek, please don't interrupt. I'm sorry, I'm getting my communists confused. No. Now, look. Now, he's saying Taliban, Anand is attributing Taliban to the holy verses. Now, I asked him, and he said such verses exist in all. Well, as an atheist, I condemn any misogynistic, patriarchal, or vicious, violent verse that happens in any scriptures of Hinduism. I do it openly. I want Vivek to say, does he condemn verse 434 that the Taliban are pursuing? And I quote it, men are in charge of women by right of what Allah has given one over the other and what they spend for maintenance from their wealth. So righteous women are devoutly obedient, guarding in their husband's absence what Allah would have them guard. But those wives from whom you fear arrogance, first advise them. Then if they persist, forsake them in bed. And finally, strike them. Does he have the temerity and the guts and the gumption to say that I condemn the words of Allah?
Whether they are the words of Allah or the words of Ram, I don't believe in any religion whatsoever.
There we go. सामने आ जाता है. This is what I love about. This is what I love about the communists. It is so easy to expose their hypocrisy.
1 second.
He is going to burn Manusmriti. He will burn Manusmriti. He will burn Upanishad.
1 second.
He will burn Rigved. But you ask him to condemn One words of Allah, and he'll say, nahi, out of context hai. Arey mujhe maaf kar do, mujhse galti ho gayi. Arey Manusmriti jala do. Arey Upanishad jala do. Arey. That's
Okay.
why I love you, Vivek.
Okay. Let's bring in Nalin Kohli and let's open this up a little bit. Mr. Nalin Kohli, the charge is that if a BJP, and you know, we heard the other day the UP Chief Minister saying that, look, don't legitimize the Taliban, don't praise them, because if you end up doing that, then you are going against the tenets of civilized discourse. Now, is he being an Islamophobe when he comes out and takes a very clear stand against the Taliban? I want to ask you this, and why not? Because Vivek Srivastava says that this is not about the Taliban, this is about equating the Taliban deliberately with Islam so that at the end of the day, you can denigrate the faith. That is what he's saying.
So, Rahul, this may take a few minutes because there are multiple aspects to it.
Please.
And of course, we've heard all the points of view so far. So the first point to make is that, look, at its fundamental level, there is something called the perennial thought, which I found very interesting in a read, that says across all religions, there will be a certain commonality of thought. In terms of, be honest, do not do this wrong, do not steal from others, things like that. There's a commonality of thought. Some people call it the perennial thought. Interestingly, in the name of religion and across religions, there have been dark periods of great suffering for mankind from within the religion too. We've seen it during the Inquisition. We see it with the misuse of Islam by terrorists. We've seen it with regard to the classification of castes and how it was brutally used against, say, calling people even untouchables. So every religion goes through that. But that's for the religious scholars to look. When you invite me as a political person, I need to just point out that most of these arguments that come, particularly from the so-called liberal and also from the left-leaning or the BJP-opposed set of people, these are arguments of convenience to somehow attack the BJP. So instead of mounting a frontal attack on politics, because after all, we are a political entity, they should have the guts to take us on politically, go and face the people and let the people decide in a democracy who they wish to vote for. So they try to do this. In fact, I'm sometimes pained to notice those who classify themselves as liberal are so illiberal that they won't even like to hear another person's point of view, which goes against our constitution, Article 19. Now let's come back to India for a minute. In India, in 47, we had a choice of being a religion-run or a Hindu majority, being a Hindu majority country, a Hindu country. We chose the constitutional route. And those Muslims who stayed back also, essentially, have chosen to be an Indian first and then a Muslim as everybody else. We are Indians first, then we have practiced our own religions. So there's a common Indian identity. In that particular context, you can't have anyone come up and say that my religious identity will supersede it. So sometimes I've been on debates, perhaps on your channel, where somebody said I'm a Muslim first, then an Indian. So my argument is you can't say that taking the benefit of the Indian constitution. You can say that in 56, 57 countries that run on Islam, where yes, a Muslim will be given higher priority or rights as compared to another citizen, but not in a constitutional run democracy like India. The problem with the left fronts is that any such statement or those who say are anti-BJP, they will pick a sentence like this and say, no, let's not talk about this. The problem is with the BJP. The BJP is driving them to say so. That cannot work. So when Yogi Adityanath ji makes this comment, he says it as the chief minister upholding the constitutional obligation that please do not try to glorify some set of people and their ideology, which is globally seen as harbingers of terrorism, and try to give it a justification, particularly for those who are trying to use it to oppose the BJP. Oppose us. Okay. You have full rights under the constitution in a democracy, but don't pick up these arguments of linking it. Where will this stop? Will it stop with the Lashkar-e-Taiba? Will it stop with other jihadi groups? Will it stop with the Al-Qaeda, ISIS? So where will it stop?
Okay.
So I think we owe it to ourselves as human beings first, and then as Indians, not to do so. And those who are doing it and glorifying these acts of violence are doing great injustice to humanity,
So
which is what the Muslims themselves say.
Okay.
Because do not think, ultimately the sufferers there are also Muslims.
That's true.
And Muslims do not, by and large, except for a minority who would do so, who are linked with the terrorist groups, they stand in condemnation of this too. So I think we need to understand all of this.
Let me ask Mr. Majid Haidri. Mr. Majid Haidri, the Talib or the students of Islam as they call themselves, are the Taliban, sir, terrorists? You know that they kill Hazras, Ahmadiyas, Shias, several other denominations even within Islam or the Islamic fold. Would you describe them, sir, as barbaric terrorists, the Taliban?
Well, sir, before answering your question, I want to make a clarification that Quran is the book of guidance. It is the toolkit for every Muslim. And if we dare to question any verse of Holy Quran, we cease to be Muslims. So it is our faith. And it is the book where the chapter number 1, verse numbers describes Allah as God of all universes, God of all human beings. Like Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alameen. Rabbil Alameen means God of all universes and not Muslims alone. And it is the same Quran where Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is described as Rahmatul lil Alameen, which means mercy unto mankind and not Muslims alone. So Islam is the religion of peace, and it is for mercy unto entire mankind and not Muslims alone. Now coming to your point, see sir, the point is very simple. If India wants to give a diplomatic defeat to Pakistan, we need to have good relations with Taliban. And we need to
No, I'm not asking you that question.
Lead on that front.
Sir, one minute. You said that all of humanity is looked after by the God, right? That's what you said.
Yes. Yes.
So I want to ask you, when people like the Taliban, the students, as they call themselves of Islam, slaughter Shias, Ahmadiyas, Hazras, women, children, apostates as apostates, Hindus, Sikhs. I'm asking you a simple question. In your book, are they terrorists? Are they?
Sir, if we get evidence,
not evidence.
Evidence that these crimes are taking place, then we'll debate this because we don't have any.
So you need evidence. You don't have evidence. What do you think they do, sir? Should I show you some pictures? Come on.
I said authentic evidence.
Authenticate, sir.
Taliban are not the only.
I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but this is an argument of lunacy.
Sir, Afghans
This is an argument of lunacy.
Excuse me, Majid Haidri,
Absurdity.
Afghans themselves
Ridicule.
are coming out and saying.
And I think he does great injustice to the fellow brother Muslims of his own religion who stand against the Taliban
I think the
and
answer
other
is
terrorist organizations.
BJP and RSS.
The answer is clear. The answer is clear, viewers. This gentleman doesn't believe the Taliban are terrorists because he is still awaiting proof to show that the Taliban butcher, kill,
Is it a
maim
court of law?
Shias,
What is he
Ahmadiyas,
talking about?
Hazaras, Hindus,
Sir,
Sikhs.
unless it is decided
He's still
by
waiting,
some
and
international
women
court of justice,
and
I
little
can't go
children.
by the hair,
He's still waiting. He has
Even
forgotten the
fellow
tears.
Sunnis.
He has forgotten the
Even
tears.
fellow Sunnis.
One second. He's forgotten the tears of all those parents, and so is Imran Khan, by the way, viewers, of all those parents who lost
Let's not
their
go by
children,
hatred against Muslims.
their children
Look at
in
what
Pakistan
India
in a
needs.
school
What is the diplomatic
about 3
requirement?
years ago. Viewers, all TV channels in Pakistan, their anchors went to that school, they shed tears, they cried. Very moving. It was terrible. Today, Pakistan is the biggest champion of the Taliban. Now, if India says that we are not, then we become an Islamophobic nation. How does this work? So let me ask Atikur Rahman. Atikur Rahman, the same question goes to you. Forget about the arguments of convenience, the elliptical arguments to target BJP. I'm only asking you, sir, human to human. Do you believe that the Taliban is a terror militia? Simple question, yes or no?
terribly, yes.
Okay. Now let me ask you the second question. I'm very happy that you said yes. So if I criticize the Taliban, sir, do I become an Islamophobe?
If you allow a person on your channel to denigrate Islam and Quran and attach with the Talibani, thought and their doings, that is Islamophobe.
Who are you referring to?
Dr. Ranganathan.
Yes.
Okay.
Very good.
Now
A
listen.
person denigrated Islam and Quran. He quoted
Now
the
listen,
verses of a
Atikur
holy
Rahman,
book.
I have
And that
been
holy
tolerating
book,
you.
he is referring to Quran.
Okay. Respond, Dr.
I
Ranganathan.
can't read out the verses of the holy book according to you. I can't, being a kafir. Is that how much you hate a kafir?
You're misquoting.
You mean I can't?
You
What do
are
you mean
quoting out
misquoting?
of context.
You tell me the correct
It
quote
is
then.
habitual on
Tell
you.
me.
You do
You
not
tell
have any
me.
knowledge of Islam.
Stop lying. Stop lying.
Yes,
You tell me what.
you arrange a debate. Rahul, you arrange a
Rahul,
debate.
these are the
and
people.
I will be
These are the
I
people
will
who
be
are wolf
proving
whistling.
that this person
Rahul.
is an Islamophobe. He misquotes the Quran.
Rahul.
He mentions the Quran out of context.
Be quiet.
He does
Be
not
quiet.
have any standing of the understanding of the Quran. The gist
Rahul,
of
mute
it,
him
No,
out.
so-
the philosophy
so
of
one
the
second,
Quran,
one second.
the philosophy
Mr.
of Allah or the Prophet of Islam.
Mr. Atikur Rahman,
He is
what
an
part?
Islamophobe.
What part has he misquoted? Can you clarify?
Hey, tell me whatever.
Clarify,
you quoted.
sir.
Yes.
Why should you
Yes,
analyze
I
Quran
will.
in the first place?
I
Who are
will,
you to
yes.
analyze?
Always he quotes that Allah says, do not sympathize with the non-believers. The non-believers he is mentioning is the not non-believers of the Hindus of India. The non-believers of the pagan Arabia are the non-believers. The Quran mentions the non-believers
Rahul.
in the context of time and age.
Okay.
The Hindus of
I
India
must
are
come
not
in now.
non-believers, they are
Okay.
believers.
I must
Respond.
rebut.
Respond. He's saying that you're misquoting. You're misquoting. Go ahead.
Rahul, 2 points very briefly. Atikur Rahman is wolf whistling. He would rather have me dead. As that's the only thing that a kafir should be for Atikur Rahman. 2 points here. Number one, does he mean to say that all those Quranic verses that talk about Jews, that talk about
Yeah, just
Christians,
call you
that talk
back. I'm
about
on
policies, are of those 1,000-odd Jews policies in that era, that 1.8 billion Muslims don't take them out as for meaning for all Jews and policies? And number two, I quoted the Quranic verse, now please don't interrupt. I quoted the Quranic verse 434. Atikur Rahman, if you are a true Muslim, I challenge you to tell me how did I misquote it? अगर दम है, अपने आप को मौलाना कहते हो, स्कॉलर ऑफ इस्लाम कहते हो, तो बताओ मेरी क्या गलती है 434 जो मैंने कोट किया? I have never said that Allah is wrong or I condemn the verse. Never. I quote the verse. How is quoting the verse denigrating Islam? Don't wolf whistle. समझ रहे आ गई आपको बात? I know you hate kafir. I know you practice al-taqiyya. But you tell me,
go home.
why have I denigrated Quran by quoting 434? अगर हिम्मत
Mr.
है,
Rahman,
तो
Can you show where he has misquoted, please?
Quote 434. Tell me where I have misquoted. Bolo.
Yeah. 434.
Bolo.
434 should be
Bolo.
read in the context,
Should be
and
read
I
in
will
the
give him
context.
some advice. Go and read. Now I am not.
Rahul,
I
we
am
have
not.
had-
I never
we have
interrupted
had
you.
this context.
Look
Okay,
at this Islamophobe.
viewers, 1 minute.
Look at this Islamophobe.
One second.
He is full of
No, listen,
obsession
gentlemen,
with
1 second.
the
1
Quran.
second, 1 second.
I
I just want to ask you, 1 second, very quick point. And I don't have much time. You can please take this debate to another forum. No problems. I have no problems, but I need to step in here. 1 minute. Mr. Atikur Rahman, how exactly? Now, misquoting means mixing up certain words, removing certain words. We're not talking about the context here. That is interpretation. You are talking about quotation. Has he misquoted any of the words 434? I'm not talking about interpretation. I'm just talking about the quote as it is in the Holy Book. That's all.
Tell me, Atikur Rahman, Allah के बंदे हो तो सच
101% he reads the Orientalist interpretation of the Quran.
Okay.
Read Abdullah Yusuf Ali. If you have the guts,
You
I
tell me
challenge
the
you.
question.
I challenge you. You read the verse, the same verse of Abdullah
Stop
Yusuf Ali.
shouting.
If
Stop
you have the
shouting at
guts,
people.
Anyhow,
come on,
gentlemen,
Rahul
gentlemen,
Shivshankar show.
there is a disagreement
And
amongst
Abdullah
two
Yusuf Ali.
panelists on the
I
exact
challenge you.
quote
I
of the
challenge
Quran. I am not here as 1 minute. I am not an authority on the holy book. Therefore, viewers, I can't step in here and give any judgment. I have allowed both sides to express their point of view. Mr. Atikur Rahman has a bone to pick with Dr. Ranganathan, who has a bone to pick with Mr. Atikur Rahman. This is becoming a personal duel between them. As far as I'm concerned, viewers, I only believe one thing. If anyone stands up for what is right, and I think on one particular point, Atikur Rahman has agreed with us, and one must give him credit for that, that he does believe that the Taliban, in the context that we see them, are terrorists, and I think that is a fine admission to make, unlike Mr. Majid Haidari and Vivek and others. All I want to say, viewers, is if that is the case, anyone criticizing the Taliban need not be bullied. I will leave it at this. Lot more coming up. The Prime Minister has had a word with German counterpart, Chancellor Merkel. We're going to bring you more details on that, but here's the break and we're right back.